recording. Here we go. Welcome, everyone. It's the 11th of April, or is it it's the 11th of April, 2016. This is our Goldmiind call. If you're with us in RX, you'll know what that means. It means it's a conversation we have every week about how to get your mind right, how to get your actions right, so you can go out there and build your RX business. You know, this call is, there are lots of teams all around RX. There are some major teams that are led by certain leaders that have their own team orientation calls, and they, and they have groups that they meet with on a regular basis, and there's a real great camaraderie. But, if you get signed up by your cousin who happens to be in one of those groups, but you happen to live in another state somewhere or another country, another province, then sometimes these calls are a way to kind of feel connected to the whole company of RX. A person who is kind of out there, who's maybe been enrolled by somebody, and that person has left and gone away, that they call that person an orphan. So some of you are parts of teams. You maybe have found out about this and have signed up in one particular city somewhere, and there wasn't an organization going on in that city. Therefore, it falls on you. You become the person who starts your little group and brings them to your house maybe, and has a small, weekly group until eventually there's enough people in your city to maybe have a monthly get-together. And then eventually, that as a group starts to build and spread, then eventually one of those people will know somebody in another part of the country or the world, and then they become orphans. So as we move forward in 2016, our goal through this call is just to keep you connected to the company, let you realize what a great company it is. And number two, we're doing research, frankly, from this particular call, because we're going to be upgrading the boss over the next 7-8 months. Hopefully by the first of next year, the boss will be even better than it is. I think it's good now, but I think it could be, it can be revolutionary, I guess is the question. So the question I would ask you is, that there is a training program on the back office of RX, X office, and it lists all kinds of introductions from some of the top leaders. It lists some training with Tim Sales. There are some videos that I have also shot that added to the boss. I'm going to ask you, as we kind of launch into this afternoon's conversation, have you watched it? Have you been through the boss? Did you even know that it existed? So I'm going to actually ask you to, in the chat, and you can find your chat on this call. Later on, for those of you who are calling on the phone, I'll ask you verbally, have you been through the boss? Have you watched all the videos? And then the second question I want to ask you is, what would make the boss so revolutionary that you not only would have to watch it and experience it and learn from it, but that you would be so overwhelmingly excited that you would, talk to your friends about it and your downline and say, we must go through the boss. I don't think it's at that level now. I think it's good, but it's not great. Well, I think it's even great, but it's not extraordinary. How about that? So that's the question I want to kind of ponder in the back of your minds as we're brainstorming here, and then I'll open it up for conversation as we move into it. We received over this last week, by the way, these are some of my books, and one of my books, Multiple Streams of Income, talks a lot about network marketing, one of the 10 streams of income that people use to create streams of income in their life, net residual income. So this company, RX, has just published their average earnings report. And I don't know if you received it in the email, but it's something that, first of all, if you're ever talking with somebody about income, like how much can you make, how do you make it, this income report should be given to everybody that you talk to about money. It just keeps the company safe, meaning you're not making claims about how much money you can make, how easy it might be to make it. But this report is, I think it's even better than what you can say about it. Average yearly earning, if you're a full-time representative, that means that's all you do but RX, is $326,000. And that's serious money. There are some leaders in RX that are making obviously much more than that, because that's an average figure. There'll be people who make less, but there'll be half the people who will be making more. So that's a very nice number. Now, if you're a part-time person, it's substantially less. Why? Because you're just tinkering with it. You haven't really made it a serious pursuit of yours, or that the average person hasn't. And they're doing it part-time, and they're just trying to get up to speed. The average person, of the 52,570 people who were signed up in 2015, throughout the entire year, whether they were only involved in the business for one day, you take all the 52,000 people all around the world, divide their earnings by every single person, and then do an average on it, and it'll be about $1,557 per average associate or representative of our company. So those numbers are pretty impressive. I think they'll be more believable if you show them that report than if you talk about it. Or if you do talk about it, you can say, I'd like you to look at this report that shows you what people earn. This kind of overcomes that complaint or excuse, or this disbelief that anybody makes any money, that nobody makes any money in network marketing. You can show that on average, we do much better than most, I think, in the top 5% of all network marketing companies. Very few are going to be able to report numbers that good. And that doesn't mean it's easy to do. It tells you in this report, it's a 2-page report, by the way. If you haven't read it yet, I think you should, is what I'm trying to say. Now, what this call today is a summary of what I think the 4 skills you should be teaching all the people that join you. And that means you need to learn these skills yourself first, and then you teach them to other people. So I've tried to make our conversations simple enough so that you can teach them to anybody. First of all, for you to get it yourself. So I call it the 4 maps. And to summarize briefly, the clarity map is when you really are asking a person, what do you want? And when do you want it? And why do you want it? And who do you want it with? And what are we going to need to do to get to that level of income and to that level of an ideal lifestyle? The dream conversation is one of the most important conversations you can ever have with anybody, with any person who might be interested in joining your business. You need to know what they want, and therefore you have a conversation with them about that. And I call it the clarity map. And this is the map right there, and it's in simple illustrations that are extremely easy. Anybody can do it. A kindergartner can do this. They have a plus sign, minus sign, lines, a house, symbols about what people want. The next map is what I call the anticipation map, because the first map about dreams is very, very right brain. And essentially, I don't want you to go into what could go wrong. I want you to go into, the positive parts of it. If you go too much into planning and left brain thinking, then it kind of kills the dream. It's almost like when you're doing a brainstorm with somebody, you don't want a negative person. You don't want an attorney in your brainstorm. Attorneys come here. This is where the attorney belongs. This is where the left brainers belong. The right brainers, we want to tap into their right brain dreaming mind, the mind of what's possible, without worrying about how hard it's going to be. But this conversation, and we won't go into this today, but it's the second part. You create the dream with somebody. Now let's talk about what it's going to take, and that's the anticipation map. Then we go into the ritual map, which is what do we have to do on a daily basis to build the self-will to determine ourselves, to become determined enough that we can get it done. We talked a little bit about that last week. Like the whole session was about last week. Today, we're going to talk about I'm going to fix that while we're here right now. That's the task map, and I hadn't fixed that from last week, so I want to fix it. There we go. The task map is how are we going to get this done? Now, I'm going to go back to the basics of the task map. And when you're trying to talk to somebody about their dreams and their goals, it'll boil down to some things they're going to have to do. And it boils down into a plan. The first part of any kind of major corporation in the world, if you're going to go to a Fortune 500 company, they would talk about their dreams or their goals or their plans in the future. It'd be the dreams first. Then the second part is strategy, and the third part is plans. And plan is a to-do list, like what do we need to do, and how do we need to plan this out so that we can reach our dreams. And so I boiled this down to how you will be teaching organization to your team, because they are already too busy. Right now, you're too busy. Most of you are too busy to watch this or to listen to this because you've got a million things on your to-do list. Now you've enrolled in ARCS, and now you have to move some things off your plate so you can focus an extra hour or two a day on a part-time basis to make this happen. That means you have to kind of reorder your whole life to make sure that this doesn't get forgotten. And every brand new person you enroll in ARCS is going to have the same problem. They are already too busy. Their whole day is already too full. If they want to get done everything they want to do, eat, take care of their family responsibilities, go to work, sleep, a little bit of entertainment, maybe a little bit of TV. There just isn't a whole lot of time left unless you sacrifice and cut something out. So we start back again with this simple little box that you put around the frowny face. And I want you to draw this out with me right now. Every one of you, take a blank piece of paper, get a pen. Back to, the basics here. You put a frowny face in the bottom left-hand corner and a smiley face in the top right-hand corner. And now we're into a conversation. How are we going to get to that smiley face? Well, we got to have a dream, and then we have to have a strategy, which is 2. We have to have rituals, and now we got to get things done. We got to check things off our to-do list. So the way I like to teach you is the line that goes between where you are and where you want to be is a hill. It's a climb that we're going to make. It's going to be difficult. And if we don't plan on it, it isn't going to happen. It means we're now stuck most of us are stuck in this box of fear and overwhelm and just dreaming. Sometimes when somebody is in overwhelm and you start talking about dreams, it's almost like, don't talk to me about dreams. I don't want to talk about it. I don't even want to think about it. It's like they're so immersed in their current problems, they have a hard time even imagining outside of the box of their fear that there might be a better life. And that's why, the first 3 habits that I've been talking about with you, that I want you to learn how to teach to other people, it's so important. If you've laid it out, then they'll be ready to have this conversation with you. If you just kind of say, let's dream and let's get started and let's start filling up our already too busy days with more things to do and websites to study, lists of names you got to write down for the people you're going to talk to. How do you fit in the time to talk to anybody in an already too busy day? Well, that's what this call is about. The line, I want you to write these words on that line of the mountain as it climbs up. As good as done. I want your dreams to be as good as done. So this little funnel with the number 100 at the top of it and the number 3 at the bottom is a way of describing to you a story that comes from, let's see if I can spot it. who was there for a while. You know how that is. You have a place in your library where you put things, and it used to be it's the biography of Steve Jobs. Have you read it? It's a long book. It's quite an interesting book if you happen to like Apple. I'm an Apple guy, but there was a story about it right in the middle of the book about the way he ran his company. And every year they took him on a retreat, and there were he said, I want to have the top 100 people. Of course, at that time, there might have been 5,000 employees. And he says, I want you to select the top 100, the ones that if the ship went down, these 100 would go in the lifeboat. Everybody else would drown. These 100, if there's only so many lifeboats, these are the ones we jam in the lifeboats. Why? Because if the company goes down, then these 100 would start the company again. These are absolutely essential to the company. And he had this retreat, and they went and argued with each other for 3 days. What are we going to do next year? What are the projects we're going to work on? And they put a list of 10 to 20 projects that they would do. And then they would argue about what the order of these projects were. And finally, after 3 days of wrangling, there would be a list of 10. They would be in order of what they felt would be the 10 best projects. And then at the very last part of the event, Steve Jobs would take his pen out and would cross out the bottom 7, and he would say, we can only do these 3. Now that's a very profound conversation about scarcity, about doing a few things well. The reason that Apple became the most valuable corporation in the history of the world, when just a few years earlier, it really wasn't that much of a company. In 1999, when he took it back over, it was almost bankrupt. And yet, 15 years later, 17 years later, when they launched the iPhone, I think it came out in 2007 or something like that, the Macintosh computer only had 5% of the market share of all the computers in the world. And obviously the iPhone had 0 market share because it was brand new. And there were 5 major corporations that had all the market share. Samsung had a chunk of it, and a company out of Sweden had a whole chunk of it. I think you'll remember the name. Motorola had, there were only 5 companies. In 2016, now it's been 9 years, maybe 8 years since the iPhone came out. All 5 of those companies that were at the top, who owned the whole market, 100% of it, Apple has 90%, of the market share. And only one of these 5 companies, or maybe 80% of the market share, only one of these 5 companies has made a profit this year. All the rest of them have lost money and lost their market share. And Apple did something that was revolutionary. Why? Because they only focused on 3 things every year. Let's just do 3. He says, I don't want 10 mediocre products. I want 3 products that can make us the most valuable company on the face of the earth. Of any corporation that markets anything, Apple was number 1. Companies have been around for 150 years. And this little startup company from 1980 until now becomes the most valuable corporation. And it really bases on this real simple concept of let's do a few things really, really well. Let's not do a whole bunch of things. And so I'm going to recommend that to you. Yeah, you can have projects you're working on, maybe even several different money-making projects that you're working on. RX should be one of those projects, but I'm going to suggest that you really very, very narrow on the projects that you're working on, so you can create some greatness. And you want your RX business to be a great business. Why? Because it has the potential of creating streams of income that can rival anything you're doing in any other way. So Jobs would say, we are proud of the things we say no to. And so you have to be good at saying no to lots of things. And it's the fundamental basis of the whole concept of time management, because time management is usually based upon a person's to-do list. And so do you use a to-do list? Most people do. And they'll write a to-do list at 7, 8, 10 things on that to-do list, sometimes 15, sometimes 20. I remember once, just in terms of my multiple streams of income, I wrote down how all the ways I could make money, from all the different streams of income that I was working on. And there was a list of like 20 different items on that list. And if you look at that same list, it was probably done 10 years ago. If I were to look at that list today, I would probably find none of them are still existing. Maybe one. It's because I was a generalist, like let's make multiple streams of income, right? Well, yes, I think you should make multiple streams of income. I think you should just be very careful about the extra streams of income you add to things that are, that are necessary for you. For many of you, it's your job. So yeah, you've got to do that until you don't have to any longer. And then just a couple of extra streams of income that you focus on. That's what that little symbol, and I want you to draw it like that. A little funnel, little arrow. There's 100 things you could do, but you have to say no to 97 of them. You have to be good at saying no. You have to be proud of saying no. Some of you don't like to say no. You don't want to offend anybody. I need you to offend people. They say, well, can you help us with this particular project? You need to say, I'm sorry, I can't. I've made a decision that there's a couple of things I need to do really great this year, and maybe next year. Today somebody emailed me and wanted me to be part of a project Saturday from now, and I had to say no. No, I'm not going to do that. In a nice way. It wasn't any nasty way of saying it. I just say, I'm sorry, I can't make that. I'm a little overbooked. And I want you to be a little overbooked with just a few things, As my friend John Assaraf says, do a few things better to completion. Do less better to completion. Write that down. Do less better to completion. John Assaraf is the person who quotes that. It's a simple quote. So now I want you to take this mountain we're going to climb, and we're going to break it into 3 blocks of planning, because this conversation today is about planning and how you plan. Well, you have to have a dream in order to plan towards. And dreaming is very right brain, as I told you. So make sure you've done it. So you imagine how good it could be if you pursued and followed through on a plan. If you did a few things better to completion. And there's going to be a 5-year time frame, up to a 1 year, up to a 5 year, and that now is today. So let's break it into those kinds of chunks. And I want you to start thinking that way. You're doing 5-year chunks. Now, Japanese people, they do it in 50-year chunks, sometimes 500-year chunks. Americans are famous for short-term thinking, but at the very least, you have to have at least a 5-year plan. And you'd be shocked how many people you would walk on the street, meet them in the mall, ask them, do you have a 5-year plan? And they would be able to say yes to that. You'd say, when is the plan? And you say you have a 5-year plan, so that would be today is the 11th of April, 2016. So 2021, if you have a 5-year plan, where do you want to be 5 years from now? What's your ideal lifestyle? Have you tapped into that part of you? Are you passionate about it? You see, you can have a vehicle like ARCS. It's your vehicle. It's a vehicle driving up that mountain. In fact, why don't you just draw a vehicle in above there? You can have a vehicle, but if the vehicle has no gas, it doesn't matter how beautiful. You could be a Bentley, it could be a Rolls Royce. If there's no gas to drive it, then you're in trouble. Hold on one second. Hey, Aaron, I'm on my conference call with ARC, so yeah, I'm home. Yep, I am. Bye. Sorry. So the bottom line is you need a 5-year plan, and you need to kind of know what it would be like when you get there. Now, obviously, there are many things that you could put on your ideal list. In fact, if you have a bucket list, do you? Well, then there are probably lots of things on your bucket list. One of the things on my bucket list is to travel to every country in the world. And right now I'm at like 60 countries, and there's 140 more to go. And there'll be a lot of different countries in Africa that I haven't been to, and a lot of countries in South America I haven't been to, a lot of islands I haven't been to, island countries. But that's not on my 5-year plan. Eventually I'll get to that. That's part of my bucket list. But in terms of my ideal lifestyle, how I want to wake up in the morning 5 years from now, I want to wake up in my dream home, wherever that happens to be. I want to wake up with my incredible spouse of 39 years. I want her and I to be together. I want to have a family and with my kids and grandkids. And it's like, if you wake up and have an ideal lifestyle, what's it like? Since I'm going to have you select only 3 of those must-have parts of your ideal lifestyle, although there might be 30 or 40 aspects of it, I'm going to ask you to limit your thinking, not limit what might happen, but I want you to make, if I'm going to have an ideal lifestyle, at least these 3 things must be in my ideal lifestyle. And I'd like you to identify what they would be, and write down those 3 things. 1, 2, 3. I want to have, for me, obviously I want to have a tight, healthy, clear-headed mind, a tight body. Yeah, that's really important to me. I want my spiritual values. I want them to be the kind of spiritual values that as I live them, I know that I'm doing the right thing. I'm trying to be careful about how I talk about my spiritual values without, you have your things that are important to you. I have things that are important to me. So I write them down every day, and I want to make sure I get them. And there are 3. And within 5 years, could there be more? Sure. If I accomplish one of them, then I'm going to replace one of those 3 with one that was on the list of 4, 5, and 6. When it comes to the dones, now I'm going to share with you a new kind of vocabulary. Most people use the word goal, and I'm not going to use the word goal. I'm going to use the word done. A goal, even when you think of the word goal, you think of it from a part of your mind towards something that hasn't yet been accomplished. Just think about where you're thinking. Where in your brain are you thinking about goals? Even thinking about a goal means you haven't accomplished it. It means it has not yet been done. Therefore, even thinking about it must come from a part of your brain that is not real, that is imagined. And imagined is good, but it's still thinking from a place of your brain where it hasn't been accomplished. Now, when you think about something you did in the past and it's been accomplished, think about last year. What did you do last year? And it's in the bank. You did it. It's done. Check it off your list. For me, last year at the convention, last June, I set a done, not a goal. I set a done. That means by the time I get to the convention, I want to weigh, less than 200 pounds, and I want to be a president. I want to walk up on the stage and I want to receive that award. And in this case, it turned out to be a CEO. This was a done for me, not a wish, not a wouldn't it be nice, not a goal. It was not a goal. I thought of it from a different part of my brain, like I do right now. I can remember standing up on the stage and receiving that CEO award. There was a whole line of us behind the stage, or like 15 or 20 of us, and we came out, received our little award. I started, 6 months earlier saying there is no way that I will allow myself to be in that convention and not walk up on the stage and at least receive my president's award. And therefore, I had to think about it in a different place in my head. I had to think about it as if it's something that had already been accomplished, as if it was done. And therefore, whenever I talked about it, it was spoken of in past tense. When I was talking about going to the convention, I said, yes, I got my CEO. Well, I said president. It was only the last month that I was able to exceed that. I said, yes, I'm president. It was done. It was whatever it took. And I took many trips to Asia to make that happen, and worked very hard and organized things that were way beyond what I had done before that. A done is when you declare a done. It's finished. You can count on it. If I say something's done, if you hear me talk in that language, you know that whatever it takes, therefore it goes first on my to-do list. Nothing gets knocked off. These are the dones. When I write like Steve Jobs, when he crossed off the bottom 7, we can only do these 3. The way I say it is these 3 are done. Therefore, whatever time it takes throughout the day for me to be able to work on getting that done, I will do it. And because I declared it as a done. I didn't set a goal. Goal setting, most of the time, is a weaker way of thinking. And I'm going to be, teaching you a lot of the concepts are in the new book that you're all going to get shortly. I've been saying that for several months now. It is done in the year 2016. Therefore, you'll definitely have it in 2016, the new book. We've now changed the title from Grow to the 4 Maps. And you'll be receiving a copy of this. So I'll be just explaining these kinds of concepts to you. So you'll be able to read it rather than taking notes for today. Bottom line is, I want you to be thinking about your future in a different way. I'm changing the vocabulary for a lot of reasons. Number 1, because I want you to be thinking about it in a different way. Number 2, I want you to be thinking about it in a fresh way, in a way that's different. There are 10,000 books on goal setting, and they pretty much say the same thing, except this is not goal setting. And it doesn't say the same things that you read in a normal, ordinary book about goal setting. When you set a done, you treat it as if it's already been accomplished. When you write in your journal, you write about it, and I do it every day. I write it as if it had been done. So that it just is a way of sending signals to my body, we don't rest until that is done. And therefore, I only set 3. Now, once I accomplish one of them, then I'll bring another done up, Sometimes you might do 10 dones in a year, but only 3 at a time. Now, what leads up to a done is something you do on everyday basis. It's a must. And you could do a to-do list that has 30 items on it. But you only want to work first. You may still have a to-do list, but first you're going to think about what are my ideals? What is absolutely essential for me to have in my life 5 years from now? What would I need to get done in an intermediate step to make that happen? Well, if one of my ideals is to have a publishing company that has published 25 books. My first 30 years of my life, I wrote 10 books. Now, in the next 5 years of my life, I want to write 25. That means I have to totally change the size of the books, the content, the way they go organized, how I organize myself. 25 books is just whoa, that's a lot of books, even for me when I even think about it. So what do I got to get done this year to make sure that that goal or that ideal gets done? Well, it means this year I need to have at least 5 books done. If I want to get to 25 books in 5 years from now, we've re-released The Challenge, which is a book that I wrote in 1984, and it's been re-released with new edited notes. That was just released in January. Then this new book, The For Mass, will get released. Then another book, The Fortune You, is going to get released in about a month, maybe a month and a half. So I'm on target. We'll get done 5 books this year. This is what I love to do, and it will be done. You can count on it. Now, a done, the languaging of a done is integrity language. It means you're not going to say it. It's not even going to come out of your mouth unless it's done. Other than that, it's just wishful thinking. Use the concept of a word. When you speak your word, it's profound. Somebody hears you and you don't do it that you said you were going to do, it weakens you. It weakens yourself. It weakens anybody who trusted what you said was going to get done. If it didn't get done, if it was just a goal that you said and you didn't reach it, I want you to make the word done so it's irrevocable. It's like you don't say it unless you mean it. It means you now have to commit to it. And commitment is a totally different concept. It means, sorry, you have to say no to things that you would normally just put on your bucket list, on things that, wouldn't that be nice? It'd be cool. It'd be wonderful to have that. No, there are only a few things you're going to get done this year, so get them done. Now the must, well, in order for me to get 25 books done this year, over the next 5 years, what must I do today in order to make sure that at least one of those books gets done so I can check it off my list? I've done 2, or I will have done 2 in the next few weeks. I'm working on 3, and so I did some writing on that yesterday. I didn't write on it today. On Friday is when I did some writing on it. That was one of my musts for last Friday. Tonight, in order to get the new book done, right after this call at 5 o'clock, I'm going to have some editors, some people who have read the book and want to join in, and we have a kind of a Facebook page we put up for people to get a downloaded version of the book and then give me feedback on it. So that's my must for today, and it happens at 5 o'clock tonight. And therefore, I know I had to get it done. So I must get it done today, so that will make sure that in this year that book is released, so that leads to the 25 books I want to do in 5 years from now. Same thing that goes with RX. One of my ideals is to be a 4-level chairman, a 5-level chairman in RX 5 years from now. What's going to take? Gee. Well, let's see. How much money would that be? Let's see. In order to become a chairman, you have to have $6,000 check. If you want to be a 2-level, that's an $8,000 check. 3-level is a $10,000 check. 4 levels, a $12,000 check. 5 levels, $14,000 check plus bonuses. That means you're pushing $1 million a year. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, that's an ideal for me. That's the way I'd like to think about it. Well, what must be done this year? Well, by the 1st of January, I'm chairman. It's in the bank. Not going to stop until it happens. I do have a few more months to go, but the way deadlines go, if we get down to the last 90 days and I'm still haven't achieved it, then I'm just going to stop everything else and make it happen. What must I do today? Well, I've got to communicate with some of the leaders who are going to participate in that process. So I've asked them, tell me what your ideals are. Tell me what must be done in 2016, and what are you going to do about it today? So I'm never going to get to that level. You're never going to get to the chairman level unless you have people underneath you in your downline who've achieved goals, musts, dones, ideals, to use a different languaging. Do you know what that is? Do you know what they are going to be accomplishing? Well, maybe you don't have a downline yet, but when you do, you're going to ask them those questions. Where are we going to be in 5 years from now? I'll tell you where I'm going to be. And if you're in my downline, that means I have to work with you to help you accomplish your ideals, because this is important to me. And therefore, I hope it's important to you. What can I do to help you get that done? Because I'm going to have, and you'll tell them, let's see, if you want to be chairman, that means you have to have a power leg and a pay line, both of them maxed, 14,000 or 13,333 volume on both those legs. That's 2,000 a week. Another leg built out, that's $4,000 a week. Another leg, that's $6,000 a week. That's chairman. In other words, you're going to have 4 legs. It's a simple way of explaining it. There are other ways of doing it, but this simple way, you have to have $13,000 worth of volume on 4 different legs. What that means, you're going to need some leaders on each of those legs. How many leaders do you need? 4. 4 racehorses that are building like crazy. How long would it take you to find a racehorse who builds underneath one of your legs? It might take you 5 years to find 4 racehorses. Yeah, it's not going to be easy. But if 5 years from now, chairman was your goal, chairwoman, chairperson, you need 4 racehorses, or whole bunch of thoroughbreds in each of those legs. Or if you want to do it yourself, you need thousands of customers. And that's possible too, for you to do that. The question I'm going to ask you is, what's your strategy for doing that? How are you going to pull that off? And therefore, doing this kind of thinking forces you to break that goal down, that plan down into chunks that your brain can comprehend and remember without doing a spreadsheet. A spreadsheet is a very left brain tool. And some people love spreadsheets. And that's the way they think. They even think in spreadsheets. But the average person who joins our company is a right brain thinker. As Tim Sales and I were talking about just last week up in Utah, he says there's artists and engineers. And I said, well, Tim, that's exactly what I said in my book, The 1 Minute Millionaire. There are artists and engineers. And an artist is a person who thinks very visually and is a lot less detailed, a lot less organized. And an engineer, they're detailed. They want to know the exact little steps to get there. Most Asians are engineers. Most Americans are artists. And yet your downline needs to communicate with you. This is the simplest way for the majority of the people in your downline to be thinking in a way that they can remember. So you break your must down. What must get done today? And then before you work on anything else on your to must list, you say, I'll get these 3 things done. I'll get them finished. I'll just check them off. Then if there's other things to do that day, okay, go do those things. But at least what must get done got done. And you only have 3 things on that list. So it's not overwhelming. You can remember them. Then you have 3 projects you're working on. These are 3 done projects. 3 things you're trying to put into your bank in this year, 2016, and then 3 ideals, 3 types of different kinds of things you're working on. Could I explain it in more detail? Yes, but I actually don't want it to be more complicated than this. To get from your frowny face life to your smiley face life is going to require some planning. And even doing this takes an hour of real deep thinking. What must be ideal in my life 5 years from now? You see, if you don't do that kind of thinking, then 5 years from now, you'll wake up and you'll go, gee, I wish I'd planned this out better. So if you plan it out first in advance, like now, life will be cheaper, life will be better, life will be more organized, life will be more successful, life will be a life worth living if you do something about it. And so this is how I would encourage you to teach it to your people. Simple as you're climbing this mountain. They're basic steps. Can you see that? Number one, that number one project leads to number one must. And then there's a step that steps up to the dones. And then there's a step up to the ideal on number one. What's the one ideal you want to make sure? If you could only get one thing 5 years from now, what would be absolutely necessary? That's your project number one. In order to get that happen, then you step down to the done of this year. Say, well, in order to get to my 5-year, I got to get this done this year. And then the done is, in order to get this done this year, I have to get this done today. This must be done today. It's steps that literally climb the mountain step by step by step. Now, I'm happy to send that to any of you. Brenda will, if you ever want to send it to Brenda@robertallen.com, or you can send it to me at author@robertallen.com, and we'll send you a copy of some of those slides that I went through today. It's not absolutely essential that you get the slides that I sent you. I actually hope that you just drew your own version of it, and as you draw it, then you teach it to somebody else. I'm going to ask you to teach this to somebody else this week. Say, if you got 20 minutes, I'm trying to learn something. Would you be my guinea pig? Good. I'm going to ask you some questions. Tell me where you want to be 5 years from now. What are 3 things that are really essential? Then what must get done this year in order for you to reach that target? Then what do you got to do today in order for you to reach this year's target so you can have your 5 years target? Teach it to them, those 3 steps, and you'll notice that it'll be easy for you to remember, and I think you'll learn something. You'll have some ahas yourself, and I think they'll have some ahas, and that's our conversation for today. Now, I'm going to unmute everybody. I only have just a couple of minutes before I have to run to this other, I have a must I got to do. So I'm going to unmute everybody, and if you have any questions or comments, thoughts, additions, I invite you to share. I appreciate it. Any things you want to say to today's call?
Thanks a lot, Bob. It was quite exciting and quite enlightening for me in sitting in this class here today.
Tell me, Jim, you've sat through our last 4 classes. What was there about today that your aha for today?
I've just seen it more achievable. I can use that word.
Yes.
It isn't some dream that's out there, but it's tangible. That's what really has been getting me excited, is that.
The one comment you want your student to tell you is what you just told me, where they go, I think I could do this. You said achievable. What you want to hear from your student is, oh, I got it. I think I could do that. But if I teach you a huge lesson on strategy, I got all kinds of books on strategy and organization, time management up there on my shelf. I don't want you to read the book on it. I want you to get it in 5 minutes. Of course, today was an hour, but because I pontificated about it, but you can teach this in 5 minutes. It's really not that hard to teach. Thank you, Jim. Anybody else, any final comments, thoughts, or anything you didn't like? You're free to share. I'm totally open to anything you want to share.
I have a question, Bob.
Yeah, shoot.
Nancy. Why did you pick 5 years rather than 6 years or 7 years or 4 years or 10 years? Why 5 years?
That's a great question, Nancy. And it's just a personal preference, frankly. Most companies think in 5-year terms, so most employees will have that already built into a 5-year plan. What I say is it's up to 5 years. And there is another step beyond that that we won't go into in this conversation. There is the lifetime version. That's why I picked 5. Okay. Thank you, Nancy. And by the way, you can change those numbers as you teach it to somebody else. You can ask them, what would be an ideal time frame for you? 3 years? 7 years? Let them choose. Any other questions, comments?
Oh, I thought the Steve Jobs analogy was very good. What I read that whole book. One thing that I got out of it was that his greatest creation wasn't the iPhone. His greatest creation was building a company and a team that built the iPhone.
Yes, absolutely.
And he really simplified stuff, and that's really what you got to do. I think going after the 3 or 4 goals, if you can make your goals work together, like
Yes.
you can kill 2 rabbits with one shot, 2 birds with 1 shot. That's even better.
Absolutely. So you're working on them kind of simultaneously. You know, so when working on one makes the other one work, working on that one makes this one work. Yep, exactly. Try to get them to coordinate with each other so you're not in totally different directions. It's true.
I like the swapping the language from goals to done. I think that was a good one. I just
And
So I
for
just had
you,
a
it's
team.
what time in the morning there? Early in the
it's
morning.
getting to 1 o'clock in the morning.
1 o'clock. All right. Well, any of you are always
Yeah.
welcome at any time.
We just had a.
You just had a what? Sorry, we've lost you. Anyway, everybody, I do have to run. I must run because I've got another done to work on. So, see you, everybody. Have a great week. See you next week. Same time, same.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye-bye.
I'll be calling you from Cancun next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.